All right, podcast listeners, welcome back to another episode of the River Valley Podcast. If you tuned in last week, you heard Tyler, Tawny, and I talk about 22 in review. 22 is in the past. We are all 2023 now. To my left, I have the often visited Nat Goins. How are you?
Good, yeah.
I don't know if that term was correct. Often visited. I was trying to say like a frequent flyer, but
yeah, I was hoping to get in on the podcast last week, but I was sick at home and had poison oak.
The worst. How are those doing now?
Yeah, poison oak is gone.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Power prayer, baby.
I went on a really great hike, but I did the one thing that everyone says don't do. I got off the trail.
There it is. Yeah, there it is. Got off the trail. Got yourself a little bout of poison oak, but again, we're leaving that in 2022, right? So Nat is going to be kind of co-hosting with me on this segment of the podcast, Stories Podcast. Really excited. We have a lot of cool stories in our church, and we want to talk about them. Two of those stories are sitting over here on the couch, the Cubit siblings. We have Abby and Levi. How are you guys doing?
Doing well.
Doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Like on a 1 to 10 scale, where are you at?
8.
7.
Ooh.
All right. Okay. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Before this, I asked Abby what she had for lunch, and you said chicken gizzards.
Chicken gizzards.
You ever had chicken gizzards?
No, never. We'll never.
Never will.
It's a delicacy in Italy.
And there it is. Kicking off are the differences between the United States and Italy. So you're asking me, Tim, why do you have these two on the podcast? What is their story? Well, I'm not going to say all of that. You guys are, but you guys grew up in Italy.
Yes.
And you were missionaries over here in the United States. And so I want to kick that off. What did you guys do in Italy?
So, growing up as missionary kids, we were raised in the mission, obviously, and we just traveled all of Italy, just evangelizing. Obviously, not us, because we were babies, but our parents just would go out and evangelize, and then we'd have like revival tent meetings where people would come, and every evening we'd have a service and just an altar call. So that was kind of our mission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So stepping back a little bit, your dad is American.
Yes.
And your mom
Is Italian.
and they met in college?
No, they met. No. So my dad was in the NATO, and he moved to Italy. He was in the Air Force, and he moved to Italy in Naples, and met my mom under the tent in a conference call.
Oh,
like
okay.
a conference. Yeah.
Yeah. So they met, and then from there, they were like, we're gonna do global mission work.
Yeah, my mom joined the American team. Our team is called Christ is the Answer. And my dad joined the Italian team. And then God brought them back together, and they joined the Italian team, and with another 80 people, continued to spread the gospel all over Italy.
So your team is Christ is the Answer. So you guys are the CIA. That's your acronym.
CITA.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. I forgot. Sorry.
Cheetah.
Spelling's hard.
Cheetah.
Oh, cheetah. Funny.
Yeah.
All right. So, Levi, you were rolling your eyes, shaking your head a little bit over there. Do you agree with everything, or?
I'm just like, I thought he was in the Air Force. I was like, a couple
Air
facts.
Force,
I'm like, wait
NATO,
a minute.
Yeah.
So, a question I have for you guys: your parents, obviously, they got married and they were in the mission field, and then you guys just were raised in that, correct?
Yes.
At what point do you feel, and this might be a weird question, do you feel like you went from children of missionaries to actually we actually enjoy this and we want to be missionaries as well? Or have you gotten to that point yet?
Yeah, so when I was younger, actually, I did not like change, because we'd always move every year or every 2 years from town to town. So it was always change, always new people, and I just didn't like the change as much. But then, seeing my parents' passion for people and for bringing Jesus to them, and then meeting Jesus in person, kind of was like, there's people out there who don't know Jesus, and there's other cultures, of course, that share Jesus differently. So I would really love to go and continue spreading the gospel through other missions, not just Christ is the Answer, but Youth with a Mission and other things like that.
Yeah. So What was that like moving a lot?
It was tough. It was very stressful. Of course, you have to get all 80 people together. We grew up in shipping containers, so it's very confusing. We grew up in
Sorry, you said you grew up in shipping containers?
shipping containers reinvented to living quarters. So there was
literally. Okay, I thought it was like a
Like,
metaphoric. Like we
no,
always had
no.
our stuff, and you literally lived in
Literally.
shipping containers.
And you guys would it was like you guys would pack up and then
Yes.
unload somewhere,
Yes.
all of you guys, and then pack up again, and then
Yes.
amazing.
So moving
okay.
with trucks and getting 80 people to like
And the 80 people is the Christ is the Answer team.
community, yes, getting them all to like collaborate to like let's go, and then like one day they'd be like, today your family's moving, and then the next day it's like, no, another family's moving.
Wow, Levi, what did you think about all that?
It was fun. I actually liked it. I like packing the stuff. It was kind of like, oh, time to pack again. It got less and less like over time. We moved less and less over the years. Like I think when she was smaller, they used to move like every 2 months, and some of our friends back there even remember they were born there. They were like, oh yeah, we used to move like every month. It was hard on the kids who were like living there and also had to do like public school or private school. So that was hard for them because back in the day there was like less rules on like, oh yeah, you can just like enroll and then we'll have you like for a month or something like that. But then
Yeah.
over time they got more strict. Instead us, we were homeschooled. So we had no problems like that. So for us it was just like, we'll just pack and then bam. Then we're gone.
I feel like if you're a relational person, that's quite the tough lifestyle. If you're making friends and then see you later, alligator.
Ugh, wow.
Yeah.
For a month it wasn't that well for some people
Well,
that got really attached for like a month.
we
that
can't
was-
really like well, how do I say this? We can't understand them because we always had school,
Yeah.
and our relationship was with the other 80 who were there.
Sure.
Yeah. So you had your community.
But our friends who went to Italian public school, they were constantly saying goodbye to good friends, and yeah, it's hard on them relationally, but
So, Levi, do you feel like you have a similar or different view of missions now, like your sister?
Generally, I think very different. I grew up just like, okay, yeah, sure, we move. I'm okay with anything. I'm more of a chill lifestyle person myself, so I don't see myself moving a lot, though I would like to travel to places, and if the opportunity comes, yeah, even like evangelizing and stuff like that, that would be really cool.
Okay. All right. So, unless you have any other questions, why here? Why Grants Pass?
so it all started with the Michael Bond when he visited.
Every story starts.
Every great story,
Every great
starts,
story
with
starts
Michael
with
Bond. Yeah.
100%.
I don't really know the circumstances of why he came to Italy. I just know that God put in his heart Italy, and somehow he ended up at Christ is the Answer. I was about 10 or 11 when he came the first time, and we kind of made friends over the years. Sabina as well came, and she kind of planted in me and our other sister Sarah the seed of coming to America and studying. Sarah wanted to be a hairdresser, so kind of that helped. And so we were invited by the Michael Bond to come and kind of learn how to live independently. And so me and Sarah moved in 2019, and I was 20 at the time. So big move.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. All right. And okay. Anything you want to add to that, Levi? Just
Well, I moved very differently. I was
Yes.
here, well, they came here, and then we all kind of like visited the area because my parents were like, we kind of want to check the place out. So they did, and then what happened was we were just like, oh, this place is amazing. And even for me, when I came to America, I've always been attracted to American culture, just pretty much everything. I was just like, yes, I want to come live here one day. So having the chance to do that, I think back in 2021, there was the opportunity since Abby and Sarah had recently moved out of the Bonds house, and they bought their own place, or they were renting. They were renting their own space, and I mean, yeah. And they had an extra room, and they were like, "Hey, yo, bro, you want to come?" And then my mom was like, "Yes, take him." And then boom, and then I was out of here.
Yeah. So, what about America attracted you to America, Levi?
just culture and everything else. I mean, ever since I was little, I think I just like watched VeggieTales. I was very infatuated. It was just like all American stuff. So I was like, yes, like even Italian kids, they would watch shows, and I'm like, psh, the English version is better because some jokes don't like stick in Italian. So I would always watch like English stuff. So I was just like, I had the English/American mindset of like, yes, this is what I want to do. And once I came here, I was like, I mean, I like the language. I love everything else about it as well. So I'm like, I'm just going to come here because it's fun. Yeah. I felt like it was a dream.
Okay. And then, Abby, what about Grants Pass did you find beautiful? Someone had mentioned Grants Pass was beautiful, and so I was...
Oh, yeah. Well, recently we went to Connecticut for family stuff, and everybody's like, oh, you have to go and see like the east in the fall. But when I came back, I was like, Grants Pass is so much prettier in the fall. Yeah. The trees and the sunsets.
Sorry, Connecticut.
Of course, there's a lot of gray, but I just really love it.
Yeah.
So, not to speak to too much sensitive stuff for your siblings, but do you think all the siblings are over here currently, correct?
No, our youngest sister is 16, and she's currently finishing her homeschooling.
Gotcha. So over
in Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we might get this a little bit more later because I do have some other questions. But you experienced COVID, the whole pandemic, over in Italy, and you experienced it over here.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear some of the differences there. But
great question.
Yeah, actually, we might just I think we can just hop into that right now. Yeah, I guess
okay.
Yeah. So, what have you guys talked about it? Like, what would you say was the biggest difference between you experiencing it over here and you experiencing it?
Well, okay. So when COVID hit, we were trying to get our driver's license.
Yeah, I remember taking you and your sister driving. Yes. That was fun. I got to.
And Nat did too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right? We both did. Right. Yeah.
And that was like so hard getting appointments to get your driver's testing, and then of course the mask and the whole vaccine thing going on, and oh my goodness. And then there was another point that was like I can't remember.
So it was bad over here in the States, but I know one thing we would always tell ourselves, at least it's not Italy. Was it? and again, not to like throw it off, it just sounded like it was terrible in Italy. Was that your experience over there?
So we lived in a mountain. Well, okay. Here's the backstory. So she explained that we lived in shipping containers.
Mountains, volcanoes.
So what happened was, I think back in 2015, 16, you know a little bit about the backstory of that.
I was 17, yeah. So 2016, the government decided that shipping containers couldn't stay on the ground anymore.
So now it's a treehouse.
Yeah, so we, our elders and deacons went like looking for something, for a piece of land we could like sit on. And they couldn't find anything, and so we prayed and prayed and fasted and prayed. And then somebody offered a hotel. Okay. So we moved in this hotel in 2017, and then they stayed till 2021, or 22. So that's when COVID hit, and so they were in the mountains in Tuscany in a hotel, and the only way to get to town was a 17-minute drive, so town was full of COVID.
Wow.
Sounds like the beginning of a Hallmark movie. You're living in the hills in Tuscany.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we avoided, so it was we kind of avoided it for most of the time because we lived in a mountain. So, and I mean, it's kind of biased, like kind of my bias, but I mean, even coming here, I'm just like, okay, that's something that I do miss. It was like the view from the mountains was like, so great there in Tuscany. That was neat. But anyways, so we got a little sidetracked. But when we got it, we eventually got it because no one could escape, not even apparently 80 people in a mountain, which kind of makes sense. But we someone got it, and then everybody just got locked in their rooms, and then we all took tests. I think, oh my gosh, I forgot who it was, but I think just some medics. I don't know what they were called. Yeah, some like medics or something like that would just like come. They would test us, and then they would tell us the results. They're like, "Oh, you got COVID." It was kind of like a lottery every day. It's like, "Oh, you get COVID today. Woohoo! Yeah, you get to get stuck in your room." And we're like, "Okay, fine." And then they would also bring us food. I think a couple either churches or medics would just like bring us like pre-packed food, and then we would eat it. So kind of tasted sad because we were kind of used to, like actually cooked food, but we were just like pre-packed food. We were like, kind of like living like this, but it was still fine. It was
So
pretty
were you,
interesting.
Like in a town or a city or like a commune? Like what was the name of where you guys lived? Is it just in a mountain in Tuscany or?
Yeah, so the mountain, well, the town is, you
Regello.
won't know it, but it's
Nope.
called Regello, and it was Saltino, which means little jump, but it was like way up there.
But it was a big jump.
Yeah, it was way up there.
Okay.
So, I'm interested in the different ways that Italian Christians responded to COVID versus American Christians. Would you guys want to speak on that a little bit? You guys had experience with Levi. You were in Italy, and Abby, you were.
I heard some stories though from Italy, so I was like, ooh.
Yeah. We'll start with you, Levi. Like as Christians in Italy, did you guys, government said, "Hey, please follow these type of," and you guys were like, how did you respond to that?
Well, we were already 80 people living in a building, so we couldn't do much. But I think the other churches mostly just like prayed, and I think a lot of churches did suffer a lot from that. I mean, so did churches here, but especially there because a lot of churches are also like, I think like family based as home churches. So basically, like a whole family like takes care of like the whole like church and then sound booth and everything else and instruments and just. So it's kind of like weird when that just shuts down, and then obviously it's like it's family based. So
And then the
even
attendance goes
yeah,
down.
exactly. Attendance goes down. People
Okay.
don't want to meet anymore. I mean, we still see it today, but back
Yeah.
then it was way worse. So yeah, but for us, I mean, we were all living in this hotel in the same place, and we would have just like our meetings downstairs or our church services downstairs. So we would just like all meet. I think we wore masks for a certain time. But I feel like everybody at some point, I think the most classic Italian thing that someone said was like, haha, COVID non c'è, which means COVID doesn't exist.
Interesting.
So
Heard that in America a time or two.
So I'm just more interested in like the general response of if like the government asked you to do something, if the Christians were like, yeah, that's my duty, I'm gonna, or if it was more like I don't feel like I have to do that. I'm not even per se expressing an opinion on that. I'm just asking how Italian Christians would respond to. They're kind of like, this is my duty.
yeah, they're usually like, they were like, we get it done with, and then we just move on with our lives. But it just kept going on and on and
Sure,
on. So then
yeah.
it was just kind of, I think one thing that I've noticed was that Italians would use the excuse of walking the dog outside. I mean, probably everyone used that excuse, but
Yeah.
it was kind of funny watching like the like news and seeing like people walk their dogs outside is like without a mask. I'm like, they're not allowed to do that. And my mom's like, no, they have a dog. I'm like,
Yeah.
But then Levi didn't also like most Italians sing together. There wasn't there that there was like this viral video that was actually our Christ is the Answer singing How Great Is Our God.
Oh,
and
okay.
Chris Tomlin like also like reposted it, and it was quite cool.
Oh, really? That's cool.
But I saw a lot of videos where Italians would like sing praise and worship to each other in towns.
but from the windows.
Yeah, from the
From the windows, bro. From the windows.
windows.
That's okay.
Context.
So then,
So there was a sense of community I saw very
Yeah.
much.
Okay.
And like people coming to give them food, like of course they're like I feel like they were more connected.
yeah.
And then from stories from my mom, she would say that like people were more open to the to Christ because they didn't know if they were going to live or die the next day. So
Wow.
fear kind of opened the door to more evangelism.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay. So then, Abby, you were in America during COVID. What was your experience with American church and COVID?
I, well, so I'm very like, let's follow all the rules. But I saw a lot of division, vaccine, no vaccine, mask, no mask. I'm not coming to church if I can't not wear the mask. It's my right not to wear the mask. It's more on rights than following government, and so it was kind of sad, and people not coming back to church even after. So I saw more division, than unity.
That's
Okay.
That's a really interesting perspective, just to
Yeah.
hear how you guys. Yeah, sorry, I was very interested in that.
No, that is fascinating, and I do want to stay on that idea of kind of comparing not only culture but church culture between Italy and the United States. All right, so I'm going to throw a few different questions at you guys. It's kind of like a buffet style. You just you answer what you want, and then if you don't answer, I'll remind you what you didn't answer. I want to talk about just the difference in church culture in Italy and the United States. I'd imagine it's a little different. So a few questions. One, what are some Italian church traditions? Again, when you guys were a part of church with your family, what are some things that you did or saw in Italy that you don't see over here? That would almost be like, oh, it was weird if we did that over here. And also say vice versa. And then another one, which I'll remind us in a little bit, of how the spreading of the gospel is different in Italian churches versus American churches. So unless you have anything else to add, take it away.
All right. So obviously, growing up in the mission field, probably the biggest one is altar calls. There is like no altar calls here. I was surprised, but obviously this is a church. But a lot of churches growing up had altar calls. Obviously, tradition in Italy, the bread and the wine. It's actual wine and not grape juice.
And actual bread.
I can understand the difference of why we would use grape juice. So Assemblies of God, we'd visit most of those. And so the women would wear veils to pray because there's a verse where women have to have head covering, and then would wear skirts. And then the men had to wear like formal wear.
And so you're seeing that a lot across a lot of Italian churches.
Yes, a lot of Italian churches. The pastor, every time he has to preach, he does have to have a jacket and a tie.
Naturally. Yeah.
So whenever my dad would go and preach or go and visit a church, always in jacket and tie. And we'd really dress formal all the time too. What's different about here, though?
Levi has something funny in his brain.
I have a funny story. So when I first came here, I remember, since we always dressed formally for church, we grew up like that. We grew up like you have to dress like a little like
to impress
vest.
Jesus. I don't know.
To impress Jesus.
Oh, Jesus cares. All right. He does care about what? No, I'm just kidding.
He whatever. But when I came here, I think the first church service that I attended, when I first came here with Abby and Sarah, I just like dressed up in like a button-up shirt, and then I came, and then everybody would have like t-shirts and stuff like that. I'm like, what? Nobody's dressed like fancy. And then Abby and Sarah were like, yeah, come as you are. I'm like, oh, yes. I was so happy. And then I was like, well, there's a little freedom there. Now, like my 50 button-up shirts, I never wear.
Yeah.
That's great. Wow.
So kind of sad, but oh well.
And I got lost. What were the other
Sorry.
questions?
Oh, no, I just, differences, what you guys have shared. You guys also mentioned before we were recording that, like, greetings are obviously a little bit different.
Yes.
But
the
the kiss,
Sorry,
I
that'll be
call that
very
bringing
hard.
that back.
Yes, but weirdly enough, except my dad. My dad, he's American. He doesn't know. No, that men and women usually don't do the kiss. It's men and women and women.
Okay.
And then the women and men just handshake.
Pace.
But yeah.
Peace.
And peace.
Peace.
Peace
My God.
everywhere.
peace.
Like the peace sign?
Like
Yeah.
no, like peace. You
Peace,
enter and
like-
you're like, oh, peace, peace, and then
Oh.
when you do that, you say peace.
Okay.
What is that? What does that mean
Kinda like
to
a
you?
peace be with you.
Yes, peace be with you. It's a greeting.
And
I
also with,
love
yeah.
that.
Like even with
bring
my
that
grandma, I still call my grandma, and every time we leave, we're always like peace, 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 goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
God bless you.
Yeah, it's like a
very
God
famous,
bless you.
Yeah, her very famous phrase, God bless you.
So, random side cue, not really important. The kissing greeting, did that fade away with COVID? Or did that come back?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't been to a church.
Because there definitely are some things that seem like COVID took them away and they're not coming back. Like now you stand farther behind people in the store. So maybe do some research and get back to us on that one.
Yeah. I'll ask my mom.
So one more question about church culture before we want to end our time kind of diving into your guys' story and your move over here was, what are ways in which the spreading of the gospel is different between the two countries?
So, always the famous phrase, growing up in the mission is obviously different because our main focus was spreading the gospel. So we'd go evangelizing, group evangelism. So we'd bring a guitar out there with an amplification in the middle of the street and sing songs and have microphones and give our testimony, 2 or 3 minutes, and then invite people to come to our tent meetings or services. Or invite them with tracts to come to the local churches. So local churches would also come with us and evangelize. Or also we'd send 2 people to go and give tracts to people. So that kind of was what we did in our mission. I know of other churches in Italy who did the same thing. Whereas here in America, I feel like it's very like you do your own ministry at your job. So like my job is kind of like my mission field. So I try to spread Jesus through actions and through words and through encouraging and through wondering questions, kind of bringing up God's face.
Oh,
When
yeah.
me and Sarah came, that was the first
Wow.
book we read.
I like that you mentioned that, Abby, because I think both are important. Like there's these different movements that have happened in church history, and sometimes, there obviously was the evangelism movement where like it was all about just getting out there door to door talking about Jesus. And then there's like the incarnational movement that talked about where you just bring Jesus at whatever vocation you're in, and I think we need both,
Yeah.
and so that's really interesting. Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Is what do you notice about just American Christians versus Italian Christians? I know these are all stereotypes, but if you could maybe, and it's okay, don't feel bad if you're, it's okay if you have to say some harsh things.
Yeah. So in Italy, it's mostly Pentecostal
Yeah.
Christians and Assemblies of God.
Charismatic.
I mean, there is Catholics, of course, and Catholic Christians and Baptist Christians, but the majority of people we've visited was Assembly of God and Pentecostal. So I would say they were more charismatic in a sense. Whereas here they're more like reserved, everybody in their own pew. Like you don't see random people dancing or screaming or prophesying.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, one time somebody got up and started prophesying and praising God, not like prophecy about something, or judgment, but. Well, maybe it was judgment of the heart. I can't quite remember. But like things like that, you don't see like people stand up and start shouting prayers.
Yeah.
In the American church, everything seems very organized.
Sure.
Whereas in Italy, they let the spirit move, as they say.
Sure. Yeah, that definitely. I could see that.
Levi, anything to add?
I don't know. I'm like,
All right.
it was just all normal to me. People yelling. Yeah, there's a lot less like, not freedom of speech kind of to say, but there's a lot. It's a lot more chill during the
Yeah.
church service. It's just the pastor. There's no one like I've noticed. One instance of that I recall was like someone like saying like very loudly like amen, and I was like, here, if someone says amen, then it's just once and then silence. And I feel like a lot of people may do that for inclusion, but there it was like, nope, I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna yell it, and I don't care
Yeah.
if nobody joins in.
Yeah.
So
So do you guys find yourself missing that? Like when you come to come to an American church, you're like, oh,
Yeah, well, that was a culture shock for me, of course, because I'm more on the charismatic side. So
Alright.
growing up, like charismatic, like raising your hands, dancing,
Clapping.
moving, clapping, clapping. Everybody keeps time, clapping, and
Wow.
it's not a thing here.
Yeah.
So
Well, they
like,
clap, but just don't always keep time.
whenever you hear clapping, that's me.
so do you feel like your worship was suppressed here? Do you feel like it was?
Yes. Sorry.
That's okay. No, it's
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. And also like my spiritual life, COVID kind of ruined everything. But like my spiritual life growing up in the missionary, it was very discipleship oriented as well. So you'd like pray and like come together and pray together, wake up at 7 a.m. and pray together. And it was very discipleship oriented, whereas here you have to do your own discipleship as well.
Wow.
So it's
yeah.
it's not something you do with community. Like let's have a time by ourselves and then let's have a time together. So it was tough.
Yeah.
life groups.
Life groups helped. Life groups helped, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah,
good.
that's true.
That's very interesting and a good perspective for us. I think, I think we see a lot of value in structure in some ways, and but there's always the question of like in our structure, do we leave room, for Holy Spirit? And I think it's always good to ask those questions. And I would I think, because I've had the immense privilege of being part of churches in different countries and seeing more of a charismatic bent to them, which I think is very beautiful. And I think anyone from a more structured background could ask also, like, hey, I wonder what a little bit of structure would do to, is there a balance somewhere, kind of, which is interesting. But and then Abby, you had mentioned some comments about baptism, how you guys do it a little differently.
Yeah. So yeah. In Italy, you take like a course in baptism and you answer like questions. Like I remember when I was baptized, my dad did a course with me, my sister, and another guy who got baptized together, and we had to do like a week or 2 weeks of, am I really saved? What's your testimony? And kind of write it down, and is it according to Scripture? Whereas here, it feels very like, not on a, kind of on a whim, like, oh, today I'm saved.
Or like emotions based.
Right, emotion based, and you're like, dunk, and maybe you don't see them again. And it's like, oh, like, not were they really saved, but did God really speak to them, or was it just for show?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
No, for sure. I know. That's very interesting. Yeah, and I think we have a few times talked about, should we do some more baptism courses on, because even in some church traditions you have to be in the church for 2 years before you get baptized. You have to take 8 weeks of classes, and it's funny because I think the goal of leaving it open is to leave room for the Holy Spirit, which is so funny because it goes it's almost like we're back.
Yeah.
That looks maybe Pentecostal in some ways too, but that I really love that you shared that, Abby. I think it's good perspective of do you know what you're doing? You are proclaiming to the church that you are committed to this church and committed to the body of Christ.
But also, for us, when we get baptized, we believe that you're declaring to Satan whose side you're on, and you're actually battling, and that's when tribulations come, because Satan's like, are you really sure? So it's do you know what you're getting into?
Wow, that's powerful. It's not just a declaration to the church family, but to Satan as well.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow.
That's good.
I would just say one last question I had was, I'd love to narrow in more on personally, both of you, just your walk with the Lord, and what kind of spiritual transformation do you feel like has happened from the moment you stepped off the plane to come to Oregon to now? What has that done in your walk? You're in a completely different church denomination, it sounds like. You're in a new culture. You're living around new people. What has that done in your walk with the Lord?
Oh. So I feel like I relied more on my family in Italy, of course, mom did laundry and mom did cooking. So I had to grow up a lot on that side. But also, I feel like coming here, I had to rely more on God. Not that people weren't around. Of course, the Bonds were always around, and they always helped. And then you guys, of course, helped driving and stuff.
I don't know if I helped, but I was there.
People around us helped grow us spiritually, but I feel like I had to like be more close to God and not rely so much on my family to build my relationship with God.
That's huge. Yeah. What about you, Levi?
For me, pretty much. I mean, I felt this year, or I think these 1 year and a half, I guess.
1 year.
It's been a year and a half now. So I felt a lot of spiritual growth and also, like, self-growth. One thing that I think came to mind just, like, randomly just now was a phrase that our mom used to say that she, like, had, like, with us growing up. It was God will provide. That is one of her favorite things to say, apparently.
Yes.
And I didn't know that until just recently. And she's like, yeah, whenever you were a kid, you were missing shoes, I would pray and be like, God, provide shoes to this kid. And we would get, like, high-quality shoes that were just, like, randomly in, like, we had, like, a little, like, donation, like, place where we would pick up stuff. And she was like, these are, like, really good shoes. And who guessed it? They're the same size as my son's, like, feet. Bam! And then she would get them, and she's like, thank you, God. So she would just be like, yeah, that's one thing that I learned out of, like, coming here to America was God will provide, at least from her lessons. So, yeah.
Was there a point where either of you guys regretted moving over to the United States?
No, because the choices were either stay in the mission field and not grow, like, independently, as a human should, or find a job where there is no jobs in Italy. So it kind of really helped to, like, grow. Like, I'm working at Freddy's, and that's my first job, and it's great. And I've been there.
You've been there a while.
I've been there, almost 4 years, and I just love it, and interacting with my coworkers and people, like, who have different views than me. So that also helped kind of shape me, like, Abby, you shouldn't be saying these kind of things because they don't share your same views or ideas. So it was like a really growing experience coming to America in general. Yeah.
Levi?
Same.
Yeah, pretty much same for me. I mean, yeah.
You also work at Fred Meyer for almost 4
Oh,
years?
no. I've been working at Panda Express. I've been working there for
Let's
like a
go.
year and a half. Yeah. Panda's.
And not to bash maybe Italian culture or whatever, but would you say that there is you came over here and you said that you kind of became independent. Is it maybe an Italian family culture that you are gonna? It's more expected that you're gonna rely on your family, be in the household longer,
Yes.
and depend on them more.
Yes. So right now we have an issue in our family where I'm the mother of the house. So the other
That's
two, it's harder
awesome.
for them to grow.
We have an issue where I'm the mom.
I'm the mom. So it's very, the culture is like the oldest person usually is the parent of the household, but also, it's very mom culture. So, like, people stay with their parents longer and live with their parents.
So it's not unrealistic to think that if you were in Italy and let's say you found somebody and you were going to marry him, you're probably moving from your household
to his household.
to his household.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or very next to his parents.
Okay.
Yeah, gosh, I would say there's beauty in both cultures there, because like the beauty of family and so what would that be called? A collectivist environment. So because here in America we're just so individual about
Right.
everything, but I could see where it's really healthy in some ways to be individual also, and so I think that there's such beauty in both cultures. But that is so interesting.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like we've kind of had those pros and cons throughout this conversation of there is, I think, a downside to the individualism in Christian culture in America is like you do your thing, I'll do mine, right? Like some people want to go to church, do their thing, get out. Where it sounds like maybe in Italy, it's like, nope, it's an all day experience, or like, and in some churches as well, right? Like we're doing this all day together.
Yeah.
But I do think that there is a pro in like that independence that you have learned. So yeah, beauty in both for sure, and cons to both for sure. But
Yeah.
fascinating comparison of the two.
Two.
Yeah. Well, any more questions from?
No, I would
From
just
your
say
side.
I just am very intrigued and thankful just for you both to come on here and share your perspective of, I think, I think part of being in God's global family is learning from people in from different countries and different upbringing, and that is something that, is just a beautiful part of being part of God's family. And so I'm very like, I really appreciate the differences that you've brought up between American Christianity and Italian, and God loves both, and we can learn from each other and all of that. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah. Parting words. Where are you guys in a year?
Ooh, great question.
Or, sorry, where do you want to be in a year?
And where do I want to be in a year? Oh, great. I would really love to go and like do a mission experience somewhere. But me and Sarah are buying a house right now, so we are kind of rooted here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So either here in the mission field or both.
Or both, yeah.
All right, Levi?
For me?
Yes.
Well, under a house.
Good
Under a house because they're going alone.
Not
so
nursing,
I'm gonna
okay.
be away from the momming. So yay! I'm gonna be independent now. So
Okay,
that's cool.
Your journey.
Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. So I don't know.
Okay, so
just
you're
under a
staying
house.
in a.
Yeah,
Okay,
pretty
gotcha.
much. Yeah, if I can
There.
travel somewhere, then I'd probably like either travel back to Italy or travel to like somewhere like Japan. But other than that, yeah, just living a chill life, I guess.
Awesome.
Well, thank you guys very much for that insight. Very, a lot of learning, I think, just happened for me. Nat, thank you, as always, for co-hosting. Excited to have you on these stories. And listeners, if you're still with us, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you in a few weeks. Hoping to have Adam Elledge on here with me with the guest. So we'll all see you then. See you later.
Bye.